Hey Biology45, it's Vanessa again, and we're going to talk a little bit about blood typing. Blood typing is something that confuses people a lot. The concept is pretty simple, but there's a lot of backwards, like flippy-floppy things. So I'm going to describe this to you the best way I can in this hopefully short video. Okay, so when we're talking about blood typing, you'll notice a couple of the terms on your list are a little bit weird, and maybe you've heard about them before, and maybe you haven't. But one of the words on there is antigen, and another word is antibody. So you guys have probably heard about antigens and antibodies maybe in lecture, but I'm going to describe them a little bit here. So basically when we're talking about blood typing, we're only talking about the erythrocytes or the red blood cells. What an antigen is just a marker that the cell is presenting. So some kind of tag on the outside of the cell that identifies that cell as self. You guys all know that we have an immune system. We just talked about white blood cells. I didn't talk to you about what they do, but white blood cells are patrolling the blood all the time looking for nasties. So bacteria, virally infected cells, parasites, all these different kinds of things. These white blood cells are patrolling everything, making sure that the blood is clear and safe and that we're happy and healthy. So one thing that you definitely want to have are tags that identify your cells as self. You want to be like, do not come and kill me, everything is fine over here, right? Like when you have an autoimmune disorder, for example, that's when your white blood cells start to recognize self as bad. So your white blood cells actually attack your own tissues, even though you have tags that say, I'm me, don't worry. It's still like, no, I'm going to kill you anyway. So that's what autoimmune disorders are based on, is just we have different antigens presented on these cells that say self, but our white blood cells don't care. They're just going to attack anyway. Okay? So when we're talking about blood type, what we're talking about are specific kinds of antigens that are presented on the surface of an erythrocyte. Okay? This is important, and it's important to know because a lot of the times we're swapping blood, transfusing it from one person to another if they've lost blood, just as a way to regenerate fluids, but also the important red blood cells which carry oxygen for us, right? We need that to be replenished. So if you don't know your blood type and somebody's trying to give you their blood, you can have a bad time if they say, well, we'll talk about that in a second. So for antigens, you have there's three types, but the two basic types that you need to know about, and we'll talk about RH as well, but the two types you need to know about are either an A antigen, and it doesn't really look like an A on the cell, it's just that there was two different types, so they were like, I don't know, A, B, great, they're named. So we have A antigens and we have B antigens. Okay, so hopefully, yeah, you can see that pretty well in there. All right, so there's A antigens or there's B antigens. So you can have a couple different combinations of these different antigens. So for example, you can have an erythrocyte that doesn't have A's and it doesn't have B's. Okay, you can have a red blood cell that has only A antigens, so these presented tags. You can have a red blood cell that only has B antigens. You can also have your red blood cells that have both A and B. Okay. So when we're talking about blood type, what we're talking about are what antigens do you have. So if I only have erythrocytes that have an A tag, or maybe no tag at all combined, so we'll talk about that in a second. But let's just say I have red blood cells with the A tag. I'm an A blood type at that point. If I have both A and B, then that means I'm an AB blood type, etc. Now this weird guy here with no antigens, he is called O. So O just means nothing. So there's no antigens presented. It's a completely naked cell, so life is great, okay? Now, the term on your sheet is antibody. Now, antibodies are these Y-shaped things that have one end that can recognize an antigen and another end that communicates with white blood cells. So I've simplified it here to talk about blood typing, but you can see here that we either have A antibodies or we have B antibodies. So there's no O antibodies, there's none of that kind of stuff going on. But here you can see that they recognize A on this A antibody, and here you can see it can recognize B on this B antibody. Now you'll notice that I've simplified this tag on the end for our antibodies, and it simply says, come kill this thing. That's because I'm going to describe blood typing to you in hopefully a very simple way. So let's just say that I am an A blood type. So here's my little erythrocyte, and here's my little A tag. Life is great, everything is fine, right? But then I lose a significant amount of blood. Now, we have to consider in my blood what antibodies do I have present, okay? Now, it wouldn't make any sense for me to have A antibodies on board, right? Because this A guy will recognize my A antigens, and then my white blood cells are going to come kill those erythrocytes. So that's a sad day. What I am probably going to have are these B antibodies, right? Because That's just kind of how it goes. If you have one antigen, you're going to have the opposite antibody, just because, I don't know why, it's just the way we are. So in my blood, I have these red blood cells floating around, but I also have a bunch of these antibodies with a B tag, just because. I'm not an immunologist. So let's just say that I get cut on a model in the lab and something horrible happens. So they rush me to the ER and I need to have a blood transfusion. They need to be very careful about whose blood that they give me, because let's just say that they gave me somebody whose blood has a B tag on it. Okay? So a lot of my blood's been replaced. Well, I still have a lot of these antibodies hanging around with these B tags, so they're just going to come and they're going to glom on, and they have that little come kill this tag, right? So it's going to attract all my white blood cells to come over and glom onto these blood cells I was just given to replenish my blood supply, and these are all going to be attacked, and they're all going to be damaged, and I'm going to get really sick and potentially die, and that's not good. So what can you give me? Well, what you can give me is another A. That would be great, because that matches, and I don't have any antibodies that get angry in the presence of A, right? Or you can give me completely naked blood cells. So no antigens on it, right? That O blood type I was talking to you guys about, okay? So this is when we start talking about the universal donor. Everybody knows that O is the universal donor. Why is that? Because you have these erythrocytes here that are completely naked and antibodies can't recognize anything on it. So you can give O blood to any old person and they're going to be totally fine, right? So that's great. You guys might have also heard about somebody called a universal receiver. So let's just say that I am an AB. What happens in this case with my antibodies? Well, in this case I have all the possible, I have A, I have B, so I'm not going to have any antibodies on board that can hurt me. So I'm not going to have an A antibody, I'm not going to have a B antibody. So I can receive blood from any old person. I can get an A, I can get a B, and I can get O. So life is great, right? That's pretty cool. So what happens then if you're an O blood type? You can give to anybody. You're a great, super helpful person, right? But what can you get from somebody else? Well, you only have one option, and that's O. If somebody tries to give you A, you have both antibodies on board. So you have A and you have B antibodies. So if anybody tries to give you stuff with any antigens on board, your blood's going to get attacked and then you're going to die and life is sad, okay? So these guys, in other words, O is a universal donor, but it can only receive from another O. ABs, they can receive from anybody. They're just that friend who just takes and takes and takes, and they can't give anything back, right? These guys can't really donate to very many people because not very many other people are going to have that same AB, right? If they try to give to an O, the O has both of those antibodies. So life is sad, okay? So yeah, so ABs, they're going to be the receivers, and O's are going to be the donors, okay? Now the thing that you may have noticed I didn't talk about is the RH factor, okay? So the RH factor, there's another antibody we could throw into this mix, right? Here's our RH. RH is a little bit weird. RH can affect even the baby being born from a mom. Now, if your mom is type B and you're type A for whatever reason that might be, if you're born out into the world and you're, before you're born out into the world, you're hanging out in the womb and everything's fine, you're born out into the world, everything is fine. Her being a B doesn't affect you being an A and vice versa. However, if one of you has the RH and the other one doesn't, it can be problematic, okay? In this case, if you are a baby, let's just say that you're A, and you have something called RH, this equals, by the way, blood type A positive. So you're positive for this RH factor, okay? So let's just say that you're the baby, and you have this A and you have RH. Your mom, however, she only has the A. She doesn't have the RH, okay? So this means that she doesn't have that antigen, so potentially on board, she has an antibody for RH. Because remember, we're just going to have antibodies for stuff that's not us. So mom has an RH antibody. She doesn't have the RH tag, right? Because if she did have RH tag, she had an RH antibody, it'd be sad. But she does have an RH antibody, and baby has an RH antigen, okay? So when the baby is first developing inside of the mom, this isn't all that big of a deal. But when it gets closer to the due date, it can become problematic, and mom's body can attack the baby. So RH is a big deal. Knowing about whether you're negative or positive is super important. Still for donation, because the same principles apply. So if she tried to give, if your baby, if for some reason you get a transfusion from this person to this person, you would still have problems because of that antibody on board. So same exact principles as the A/B antibodies. But it's really important to know if you're an expecting mom, if you are positive or negative for RH factor. And they can give you I believe they just kind of dose you with a antibiotic kind of thing, or they dose you up with antibodies for so that way that I don't exactly know how they do it, but they can give the mom an injection so that way when baby's born, baby's not affected by mom's immune system, basically. Okay. All right, so that's everything really I want you to be able to take with you. I want you to know what blood type does a person have if they have this antigen or that antigen. I want you to know what kind of antibodies would they have on board. I want you to know who can donate to who and who can receive from who. Just those are the basic things I want you to know. So there's the blood typing video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that was helpful for anybody who maybe might have been confused before. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.